Hello Stampers, my name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and today I have a Christmas card project for you. I've been messing around with the Peaceful Boughs suite and the Most Wonderful Time medley, and so I have a card and I'd like to share it with you. Okay, here is my card. And I've used some of the Noble Peacock, in this case the DSP, in this case the foil, and I'm going to change that up a little bit today, but there's my card and I really like the way it came out. And on the inside I have some trees. I'm also going to change that a little bit. Let me show you the pieces that you need to make this. I used a piece of old olive that is 8.5 by 5.5, scored and folded at 4 1/4. Then I have some of this paper from the Most Wonderful Time, and I used this paper on this one, and I'm thinking I'm going to switch to this paper on this one just because there's so many beautiful papers in there and I haven't had a chance to work with them all yet. Then you need a piece of scrap of the Noble Peacock DSP. I chose the one that had the pattern. It most closely matched my old olive. And then I had a lot of trouble. I had seen someone emboss one of these pieces of foil. Well, I really can't figure out how they did it because, and you can't see it much on here because I've kind of fixed it, but what happens is the foil cracks. So I have an example here. I was going to use this the Country Floral, but you can see, can you see the cracks there in the foil? Now you can take a marker, which is what I did to this one, and just kind of fill in those cracks. And for this one I could have used Night and Navy, but I used Blueberry Bushel, and you can fill in those cracks and probably get away with using that, but it bothered me a little bit. And if you do that, then you want to go around the edge of your foil also, just to hide any white that might show from the side. And that's actually not bad, but you really have to get in there and dig and find all of those places where there is a crack in the foil if you want to use that particular technique. So instead this time I decided I would just simply use the other DSP that already has a pattern on it, and that way I didn't have to have that, and it's a little bit more reliable. I even tried running the Subtles folder, and I had an example of that one here a minute ago. If I find it again, I'll show it to you. It cracked literally all the way along those lines, and so it didn't work. So anyway, so I have a couple of pieces of DSP from the Noble Peacock, and then you need some scraps, a pretty good size set of scrap from Mossy Meadow. I thought it would be kind of fun to mix my greens here, and the Mossy Meadow works beautifully in conjunction with this other color and the paper. So I used quite a large piece because I used my Peaceful Boughs dies, and I cut out some boughs, and I cut out several different ones. I cut out all 3 that make up the pattern, and then, as is my practice, I cut extra sets so that if I wanted to use another piece of something I could, or if there was some problem, then I have them handy. Then I also, from that same set, cut from some scrap of Soft Suede, I cut some of these pine cones. And so I cut several of the pine cones because I thought I might change the decoration up on the inside to more closely match the outside by using some boughs and some of these pine cones on the inside. Okay, and then from the medley for the Most Wonderful Time, there's a page of these stickers, and that's what I used here to add a little dab of color on the outside of my card. And then I used some gold embossing powder, and that's really the only other thing I changed up. I used the green foil paper from the Noble Peacock, and I thought it might be more in keeping and give a little bit more contrast if I used gold instead. So I have a piece of gold scrap to cut my second banner piece. Here's my piece of gold. Okay, so let's just get started. I think we're going to start by cutting the designer series paper, and I do think I want to use this one with the deer and the gold. It's so pretty, and I hadn't had a chance to use it very much. I'll show you a project that I did make with it that I'm taking to convention, a little gift for some of my demonstrators that are going to be there. So I ended up cutting this 3 3/4, and I cut this one by 4 1/2, and I'm going to cut this one by 4 3/4. I think I'm going to like it a little bit better if it's just a tiny bit longer. So that's what I'm using there. And to get this in the shape that I want it, all I'm going to do is cut up the middle about 1/2 inch, and then flag the bottom by cutting from the corner to my slit in the middle. And you can just cut across there, and then you have a nice flagged end. So the other thing I did use on this was my embossing folder that is called Stylish Scrolls, and that's what I did to the front of my card here. So I'm going to show you how I set that up, and this is one of the thinner. I even tried this folder on that foil because it's a much thinner pattern, and I couldn't get it to work there either. So what I'm going to do is set up the front of my card in the folder, and this pattern goes nearly to the edge of the page. So what I'm going to do is set up my paper so I can see pattern on the 3 sides that I can see, and I'm going to push my paper onto the folder by about 1/16 of an inch. I think you can see that there. Let me just set that right back up again. So that I would have to put this through my die cut machine sideways because I can't really bend that around, but I want my pattern to go all the way to the edge of the paper at the fold line. So that's the way I'm going to set it up, and I'll be right back as I run that through my machine. Okay, so I'm back and I have run my card through, and you can see here on the very edge where that pattern is going to just go over my fold line, and there's a few little indentations right on my fold line that go over to the back. I think that's fine because what I'm going to do is reinforce the fold line again with my bone folder, and on this side it'll take those marks right back out again so that it's pretty flat. But I get what I want, which is my pattern here on the embossing folder completely covering my page. It is a little hard on your folders putting them through sideways. You should always put them through fold first whenever you can. This one may not survive. It's and it's also gone through several card classes, and boy, your material takes a beating in a card class. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to go ahead and put this on dimensionals, and I'm going to put a few on here. Now, somebody did write to me the other day and tell me that when they used designer series paper to make it a little bit more sturdy, that what they did was they put some of that double-sided tape on it and just didn't take off the backing, and that made it a little bit sturdier. And that's a great idea, I think. And I'll have to try that, get some of that super wide tape so that I can cover it, and it'll make this a little stiffer, although this paper isn't too bad. This paper isn't too bad. So I'm going to remove my release papers on my dimensionals here, and I'm going to set this up right on the top edge of the card. So right on the top edge and in about 1/4 of an inch. And there, that goes down the page a little bit further, and I think I like that a little bit better. All right, now I used my dot runner to put adhesive on my Boughs here. And that is, oops, they're not all poked out, I can see. That is because the dot runner doesn't lay down the continuous strip, and because of that, it has a tendency to only stick kind of where you want it to, and it makes laying down intricate dies a little bit easier, and that way things stay in place a little bit better without having a big inky mess. So I'm going to set this down so that it covers a lot of this, and just take it, leave this part on the edge of the card, and take this top piece off the edge just a little bit, because we're going to just trim that off. Then this piece can go right down here. Well, I'll tell you what, I remember now what I did. I cut this piece so that I had a separate strip, and I took this piece and laid it right in here. And I'm going to do that same thing with the tape runner. And let's see, I've got a little piece that needs to come out there. I can see it from the back. All right, and so I'm just going to lay that right in here. And some of that's going to get covered up, but I like the continuation of the way that looked. And I don't think I need either one of these pieces on here. I think that's going to work just the way it is. Now, I have my 2 punches, and I've got the pieces that I've set aside for the card. So I'm going to punch out the blue one. There we go. And I don't know why I picked blue. I could have picked red and done something a little different, but I kind of like the idea of it. So let me set that aside and bring out this punch. And on this one, it's pretty easy to get the pattern going up and down because it's a stripe. So punch that one out. And there are my 2 pieces getting ready to go on there. And now I need my gold stripe. And I wanted to measure this stripe to see what I had done. It's about 1 1/8 inches, so I kind of like that, so I'm going to stick with that measurement. Let's just check the length on that too. Usually I have all my things written down, but for whatever reason on this one I didn't quite have that done, and that is cut right to 5 inches. So if I put my strip in to 5 inches, and cut that down, and then cut this strip a little over, well, 1 1/8. A generous 1 1/8 is right there. And there we have our piece ready to go. And I'm going to do the same thing to the bottom of this one. I'm going to cut up about 1/2 inch, and then I'm going to cut from the corner right to the center of that piece of foil, and then the same thing on this other side. There we go. And now I have this nice little gold flag, which I should have put on before I put that piece of pine. I'm going to see if I can't pick that up and make that adjustment. Okay, looks like I can. So I put this on so that there was a little bit of margin of this paper on this side of this particular flag. So I'm going to set that up just that same way and get a little bit of a margin on that side and come all the way down the paper. Put my bows back. I may have to put another dab of glue on there at some point. And this comes off the edge, so I am going to put a couple of mini dimensionals on the tips of my flag here so that they don't go waving around and they're the same height as the banner behind. Now I just have to take off those release papers. This would have been much easier. You be smarter than me and you do this before you put on your bow so that you can get this all ready to go. There we go. All right, I'm going to trim off this little branch up here at the top. It's always easier to do that from the back side. So there we go. We have that all set. Now, to put the rest of the decorations on the front of this, I have my pine cones, and I thought that the pine cone, the larger one, looked best up here in the corner of my bows, and the smaller one I put right down here, like off the tip of those two bows there. And I love the contrast of that brown in there, adding a little bit of different color. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and put my ornament tops on. You'll see that on these I put a little bit of that foil and just nipped off a top of one of these to put an ornament topper on there. And I think in this case I'm going to put ornament toppers of gold on there. So I'm going to take this little piece of gold that was left over, and I'm going to cut off 2 little ornament tops in the gold because I think it'll show up better. And I think I do like the contrast of that gold instead of the green. So I'm going to add a little bit of snail to the back of my ornament toppers and put those in place on my 2 ornaments. I love adding that little kind of detail onto a card because I think it makes the card just a little bit more special. And anytime you can do that, I think it makes your work more memorable. And so there we've got the little ornament toppers on the 2 of those pieces. Just placement now. And I thought one kind of hanging down here and one more up at the top looked like just the ticket. So I'm going to put some dimensionals on that, and I'll be right back. Okay, so this little ornament is going to go right down here towards the bottom, and then this one is going to go right up here on the card. All right, now then we're going to take those holly stickers and we're going to place some on the card. Now there's some of these stickers that are a little interesting in that they're a little bit longer, like this one. So this one could go in here, and I'm going to slide those little leaves under the ornament, maybe. There, and just add a little bit of that red to the front of our card, and it looks like they come in singles and in short doubles and long doubles. Interesting. Well, I want to have one tucked underneath here. And then I want something right up here. And since I don't have a bow up there, I think I'm going to stick one of these little berries right up in here to fill in that space. And I'm going to tuck this little stem underneath my pine cone. It needs one more. So I'm going to take another from here, and this kit has all kinds of stickers. It has deer, it has all different kinds of things, and so there's some really fun things that you can do with that most wonderful time. Now then, the last thing I did was to place some of these glittered gold gems from the Rose Christmas Rose Suite, Christmas Time is Here Suite, on my card. And I put one up here, one kind of up in this corner, and one down in this end here. There we go. And so that is the outside of our card. Pretty well done. I think that is so pretty. Okay, for the inside of the card, we have our piece of Whisper White that is 4 by 5 1/4, which we're going to put some adhesive on. And I think I am going to put some of those boughs and pine cone on the inside instead of fussy cutting out trees. So let me put this in place on the inside of my card, and then I have a couple of these boughs. Let me just tease them apart here, and I'm going to put some of my dot runner on that, and I'm going to put them down right down here. And then I think the smaller of the pine cones looks like it just goes there, doesn't it? So I'm going to go ahead and put the pine cone down here on the stems of that, and then I think we will go ahead and add one of these berries Now we could do it down here and further extend this or put it up here in the corner. I think I'm going to put it up in the corner. Okay, there we go. I have to put on my sentiment. I'm only partly done. I have my sentiment set up here to be embossed, so I'm using my embossing buddy, and then I have my Versamark and my greeting, which is celebrate the season. And I'm going to go ahead and put that right down here on the edge of this piece of Mossy Meadow. And then I have my gold embossing powder here. And all right, and I'll quiet the video while I use my heat tool. Okay, so now I just need to trim my sentiment. Here we've got our celebrate the season, and this sentiment fits easily on top of the rest of these elements, so it only needs a little dimensional on that far end. I really do think that making this one tag here a little bit longer allows me to fill up more of the card, and this one looks to me to be more balanced. Well, now that is it. That is my project for the day. Thank you so much for stopping by my YouTube channel today. I do so appreciate it. And if you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I'd love to be your demonstrator. Or you could join my team. Got an inquiry just the other day if someone says, how do I join your team? Well, my telephone number is always listed below the video. And call me. If you want to chat about joining Stampin' Up! And being on my team, I'm happy to talk to you about all of that. No pressure, just discussion. And so the changes that I made on this card, and I'm really happy with them, are the gold instead of the green foil, and moving things down. And then I used the 2 pattern papers for my ornament rather than trying to do the embossing, because that's just going to continue to crack and not look right. So that's it for me. My prize draw for the month of November is the rose Christmas rose bundle. So it is the dies and the stamp set and 1 package of paper. So all you have to do to put yourself in my drawing is to put an order on my website, lbedinger.stampinup.net, or you can get to it through my blog, www.inkandingenuity.com. And again, that's it for me today. I'll be back soon with more cards, more projects, and more tips. Bye.